Coming to you from the M&M Exterior Studio in Nokesville, Virginia, this is Flushing It Out with Samantha Spittle, the introvert's extrovert. She talks to people so you don't have to. For now.
Welcome back to Flushing It Out. My guest today is Marianne Clyde. Welcome, Marianne.
Thanks, Samantha. So delighted to be with you.
Yes. Marianne is a celebrity in the Flushing It Out world because she's a big part of why I got started.
That sounds really intriguing.
Yes. Tell me more. Marianne is the founder of Be the Change. And I reference Be the Change all the time because that is, I think, I give that big credit for, I guess you could say, birthing the podcast. So thank you, Marianne.
Oh, my goodness. What a wonderful product of that class. I mean, you're just a success story.
Oh, well, I'm working on it, right? I'll receive that. I'll receive it. I'll let all those negative thoughts that are creeping in. I'm just going to say, you know what? Yes, thank you. So backstory for anyone, if you haven't listened, there was a break in a class one day and I said, oh, there's time for me to tell a funny story. And I told it and they laughed and they encouraged me. And all of a sudden this started to unfold, this crazy idea. And I've always said, when you have a group of dreamers, entrepreneurial spirits, encouragers come together, big things happen. And so thank you for creating that space for women to really thrive.
Oh, wow. It's such a neat thing to watch people really succeed and grow. I love it.
Well, I'm excited to chat today because, not only did you have the vision for helping women and pouring into them for creating businesses, but you, of course, have a therapy background or as a therapist. So, of course, I always want to dig into your mind more, and also very business minded because you're also a business coach helping people succeed. And I feel like what better time, we talk about Susan McCorkindale. On our last episode, we talked about kind of feeling all the feels through COVID. And so I would love to hear your thoughts on kind of helping us process some of those feelings. And then, moving forward, because yes, we need to acknowledge them. Yes, we need to not qualify them, but we also don't want to sit in them, right, for too long. So I would love to hear some insight from you.
Well, Susan, you mentioned Susan McCorkindale, and she's an inspiration to me because she's such a great author and has written some fun books and some sad books. And she's just, as a humorist, she and I have different ways of writing. But and when I was trying to get my first book done, we actually worked together, that she was my coach to get through that book because it was sort of a little agreement that I would write X amount of words a week. And then she would look over it and she would add some comments and she wasn't editing necessarily, but she was just kind of keeping me moving forward, which you really need to do when you're writing a book because it's so easy to get tired of it, to give up, to lay it aside. And so she was really inspiring and encouraging to me to get that first book out. So that was she's a good friend.
I love the juxtaposition of this then. It couldn't be more perfect then.
That's right.
You have such a unique mindset. So I would love to have you share some of your background, of kind of how, your background with therapy, how your background with helping others, how it's kind of turned into this new season of your life.
Yeah. What we were talking about before we went on camera was that it was not something I had planned. When I retired and sold my practice, that was it. I put my license on inactive status, and I was a grandma and a mom to my Labrador retrievers and just doing some volunteer work. And so it's just something that because of the year of COVID, that we were all kind of forced to pivot in some way. And both nonprofit organizations that I was in leadership positions with, the local Chamber of Commerce and the Be the Change, both were forced to make some sacrifices and went through a little bit of hardship that year. And So then in the summer, I'm just looking at some business coaching opportunities with Don Miller, who I followed for years and really like him. And I thought, wow, I didn't know Don had a business coaching thing. And he's such a normal person and so smart and so easy to listen to that I took some training from him and got certified with the Business Made Simple certified business coach. And because I was becoming chairman of the chamber coming up, and Be the Change did a new strategic plan and had to change our way of doing business because we weren't really prepared to go online. So the way I view COVID is that, sometimes things happen that force you to change. And some of those changes may have been necessary, but nobody really likes change. It's like takes work and thought, and it's so much easier to go on as you've always gone on. Yeah. And so I thought, wow, this business coaching would help me with my volunteer work. And then it occurred to me that everybody has had a rough time in their business over the last year. And I've got, like you said, I've got the therapy skills, and they are easily married to business coaching skills. And so it just was like a no-brainer for me. Was not thinking of business. I really liked retirement.
I was thinking, there's just something when the spirit moves you, when those pieces fall together, how can you not move forward in it? Yeah.
So it's been wonderful.
Yeah. I'm excited for you. I know that you have been a wealth of knowledge, and your book, the class you taught at Be the Change was managing stress.
Yes.
And I left that, and I was so encouraged. And I remember you were even like, "Are you really this excited about?" I was like, "Yes, I just need to be poured into." You can tell those areas that like you just need wisdom spoken into you. And so, as I said, Susan and I kind of talked about feeling the feels. And so, what has been your, either whether personally your go-to or sharing with others, because it's so hard to navigate the feelings when you're comparing them to other people and businesses too. You mentioned businesses struggling. And so you think, well, it's not as bad as XYZ. It's not as bad as this. So how do you help kind of guide people through that?
Well, first of all, I guess the main thing that came to mind when you said that is, you never compare your own feelings to somebody else. I shouldn't be sad. I shouldn't be scared. At least we have something to eat. Well, at least we have a house over our heads. Yeah. Always look for the good. I did watch Pollyanna again the other night. Remember we were talking about that. And her shtick is, let's play the glad game. And, but that's such a positive approach to life, is because yes, I have some negative feelings. Yes, you have some negative feelings, but mine don't negate yours, nor vice versa. And, when I was a therapist, I would also take trips to developing countries and work with child soldiers and rape victims and people who are starving and things like that. And I would come back and people would say, well, my marriage has fallen apart, but it's nothing like what you're just witnessing.
Yeah.
And I would always say, you know what? Your problems are your problems. Your perception is very real. Your situation is a problem for you. And so we need to find solutions for you. And it's the same thing with the business world. My business may not be failing like your business is failing or whatever, but it still needs work, and so, comparing ourselves to others, just totally non-productive in any area. She's funnier than I am. She's prettier than I am. He's smarter than I am. So what? That's not the issue. The issue is, if you're not where you want to be, let's get you where you want to be.
Yes.
And feelings are normal.
Yeah.
They might not be healthy if you sit and marinate in them, but they're certainly normal. And shouldn't be disregarded.
Yeah. My husband and I, we've talked a lot about, there's oh, this is bad to feel this way, versus it being a sign of something else. It's kind of the hand on the stove, like, oh, you touch it, you kind of know. So it's like, okay, there's certain feelings that, oh, I'm feeling this, instead of being, oh, shove that away. It's that, what's this trying to tell me? And
exactly.
There's a lot of opportunity for that.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
But so we've sat in the feelings. I'd say, for me personally, if I were to look at my life, because I had seen you a few months ago and I said, I've had a great year. It's been lots of fun things happening and growing, but I've also had some struggles, no different than anyone else in 2020, right? It's same storm, different boats. And I'd even say there's different storms as well. There's one big storm that everyone's experiencing, but each individually has different storms on top of the other. And so I think a common thing beyond the common feeling of, that struggle or those feelings, it's that desire to move forward. And, Susan talks about resiliency a lot. And so, being the woman of wisdom that you are, the question I would have, the question that comes to mind, at least for me personally, and maybe for others, is when you're in the midst of the storm, how do you move forward, or how do you know kind of the right steps to move forward? And so whether that's in a business sense or just kind of any sort of getting the wheels going.
That's a great question. And it's a loaded question there's a lot to talk about in there, but the wind is going to blow you around. Circumstances are going to come and go. Circumstances are going to try to knock you off base. It doesn't matter what the problem is. Circumstances happen. And so the very first thing to make sure that you don't get rooted up is to make sure you're digging your roots deep into truth and what is real and what is not real. And, circumstances are going to change too. The storm will move on, but you have to make sure that it doesn't pull you out and just cause you to stop living. So, the very first thing I'd say is you dig your roots in. That's where I think the practice of meditation comes in. Some kind of mindfulness, some kind of meditation or prayer, regular practice deepens your roots. And the deeper your roots can go in the knowledge of truth of who you are. I always say that in meditation, we recognize our oneness with the Creator. No matter how you view that, or what you meditate in, or who you pray to, the fact is that you are one with that Creator of the universe. And in my opinion, He's love and joy and peace and patience and strength and wisdom and creativity. And the more I can dip into that and get my roots deep in that, the more I become like Him, the more I recognize that I am one with all of that. And that connects us to one another as well. And so when you're one with love and joy and peace and creativity, a little disappointment or whether it's a big scary storm or a big scary pandemic, stuff happens, but it doesn't have to destroy who you are. As long as you stay focused on the reality of life is eternal and you're connected to that. And that's never going to change ever by anything. And that's the first step, in my opinion, of staying grounded, whether it's a business or a personal situation.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I love how you said digging the roots deep and connecting to the truth and who you are. I know from experience that is very true. So, yeah. So once you're grounded in that truth, grounded in how who you are, what's something you can do to kind of take that next step? Because I always love that, just do the next right thing. So, and that's why sometimes you might be at a place where it's too much to move forward. Maybe you just need to stay in that digging of the roots phase, but.
Well, and yeah, because that creates a silence, and we shouldn't be afraid of silence, because the truth reveals itself in silence. The way reveals itself as you're quiet and just listen. And when you nurture that still small voice, you'll be able to hear it better. And you'll know what the next step to take, or maybe who the person is that you should contact, or the next move you need to make financially, or you might find something happens in your life is maybe that's not even being productive. Maybe that's something you should even stop being involved in. But the silence will lead you, the stillness leads to the silence, and the silence leads you to the wisdom that gives you the plan. Have you ever lost your car keys and you're running around the house in a panic going, oh my God, what is, you're looking in the refrigerator, you're looking in the bathroom, you're thinking the dog took it, the kids hid it, somebody who stole my keys, and when you're in a panic, you can never find anything. But when you stop, you take a deep breath, you detach from that drama. Oh, I left them in the laundry room. It just, you can't find things in a panic. And do you know why?
Tell me.
Your IQ goes down. When you're stressed and you're angry or you're terrified or shall we say the technical term I think is in a tizzy, your brain is in fight or flight mode, which means all that lovely blood and oxygen leaves the prefrontal cortex and goes right to that amygdala, which is your stress center, and that's where tizzy exists.
Yeah.
And as long as you're doing that, you're not able to access your executive functioning, which is where your decision-making skills are made. It's where your ability to step back and see, oh, that person has a valid opinion here, or that's another way of looking at things. And when you're like this, all 10 step, you can't see the forest for the trees. Essentially, you have to back up and go, the laundry room. I was in there last and I took them out of my pocket and laid them on the counter. And that's when you calm down. So taking a deep breath and just detaching from the drama gives you that moment to choose another option from panic. And do you know Viktor Frankl?
The name sounds familiar, but I'm not sure. But tell me more.
So he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. He was a prisoner in 4 different concentration camps. His family was killed in the concentration camps. And during that time, he survived. He was a psychiatrist and a neurologist, and had this idea that we can choose our attitude and our mindset in any given situation. He and Pollyanna would have gotten along great because you focus on what's working, what makes you happy, what's good. Maybe what's good in a concentration camp is that you're not going to be here forever. It might feel like forever, or that you might not have liked the broth they served you, but at least they served you something, And one of his quotes that I really, really appreciate is, between stimulus, the panic event, and response, there is a space. And in that space lies our freedom. And that is your freedom to choose your response. And so your freedom is between this stimulus and this reaction. Boom, right there. You have, take a breath, take a second, let your mind calm down, and you can think things through much, much better.
That taking a breath is huge.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's a little thing.
Between that space therein lies the freedom. That's really, really powerful.
Yeah. And And it's free. I mean, it's cheaper than therapy. I'll tell you that.
Cheaper than therapy. And you don't even have to start a podcast to get therapy. The pseudo therapy that I call, like, oh, good. This is wonderful. That actually made me think of a question, which,
what's that?
Because, I feel Pollyanna was one of my favorites growing up. And I'm like, well, maybe that's my positive mindset that I have. One thing I have asked myself in 2020, kind of walking through a difficult season is, how do I know that I'm not just thinking positive? So I guess there's forcing it. Yeah. And I feel like, for me, I kind of want to ask the question a little bit more universally, because for me, what 2020 has shown me, I was able to see the gift of time as a way to, I can't think how I said it, but kind of to be a gift, because you allow healing to take place. You allow, kind of confirmation with, doing hard work and things like that. But in the beginning, I remember thinking with some hard stuff, well, how do I know that it's really good or getting better versus me just think positive, kind of the what Pollyanna. So if listeners don't know Pollyanna, old Disney movie.
They should get it.
I know, go watch it. And so, I don't think I asked the question very well, but kind of just that when you're let's rephrase it like this. When you're in a tender place and you're wanting to think positive and move forward in a positive direction, but there's that hurt there. How do you know that how can you stay in that place of thinking positive, but without feeling like you're repressing your feelings?
Okay, so I guess that's a technicality that's really good to address, because you had mentioned that there's healing in time. However, only if your brain helps you get there. So if you've got that hurt, you've been betrayed. It's funny. I think I even wrote this in my journal this morning, but it's like you've been betrayed. You're hurt. You're angry. You're feeling insecure. And if you nurse that, son of a gun, they shouldn't have done that. They're really evil. I really hate them. Nothing's going to make me get better. And your brain goes down that spiral of despair, essentially. There won't be any healing. Time will not bring healing. Time will bring sickness and death, because your physicality depends on your mindset. You can drive yourself into a deep anger pit place that the bitterness kind of wraps this root around your heart and chokes out your good health, because it just makes you vulnerable to illness. Yeah. So if you just choose not to just put on a happy face with gritted teeth, that's the thing. Oh, hi, Samantha. I'm not mad at you, really. That kind of thing.
That's that TMJ starting right there.
right. There. So, you genuinely have to look at what is good in that situation. How can I grow from this? And you can choose to be angry and bitter and stay there. But that's what I mean. If you marinate in that place, I think of it like if you're following a river and a little bit of water runs off and forms a puddle in the side, while the rest of the river runs merrily by and keeps moving and stays fresh and stays cold and stays a healing place for the fish and all the other life that's in there. It feels good to, splash up against your face. But that little piece that stopped flowing, and it gets still, it gets warm, it breeds mosquitoes, and other creepy crawlies. And that's the technical term. And it gets algae in it, and it smells bad. It's stopped the flow because it decided to stay in a place of anger and bitterness. Mm-hmm. And when you stop the flow and stay in a place of anger and bitterness, you lose your creativity, you lose your your wisdom, your ability to, because again, that amygdala is continually being fed with your blood flow of anger and hate and bitterness. And you're not releasing it into that prefrontal cortex where you have to keep the flow going. You have to keep the thoughts healthy. So it's not a good or bad thought. It's like, is this good for my health? Is this good for my relationships? Is this good for my business? And, and I have battled with anger and bitterness and held on to those lovely feelings longer than I should have. And until I actually said, you know what? I'm just not going to do that anymore. It actually is a decision. You can almost feel yourself all tensed up behind a wall, and you have a right to be angry, and that person was a creep, and they did steal your money or break your heart or whatever it is. All that's true. But you are the one that's sitting there with your energy stopped up and polluted. You just have to let it go and say, you know what? It's a choice. I'm not going to change what happened. I have to forgive and let that go because it blocks my creativity. It blocks my ability to make money. It blocks my ability to make friends and relationships. And you just start thinking about, you know what? I'm not getting any younger. Am I going to be an old, bitter lady who just looks out the corner of her curtains and gets ticked off when the kids play in her yard?
Yeah, get off my lawn.
I know. Your dog peed on my grass. Or are you going to throw the curtains open wide, enjoy the sunshine, and understand that, well, frankly, to go with your theme, shit happens.
It does.
Am I allowed to say that on this show?
Oh, yes. Yes, my kids, as they say, they're like...
Flushing it out.
Yeah, they're like, Mom says that all the time. I'm like, I don't say it in my normal talk, just when I talk about, the real shit. Yeah.
But that's the truth. It's people are going to disappoint you simply because they're people.
Yeah, we're human.
It really doesn't have anything to do with you. It just has to do with the fact that they're human. They're dealing with their stuff.
Yep.
It's not always healthy. But are you going to let somebody else's bad behavior or pathology ruin your joy? Because joy is part of that comes when you're grounded. Joy is part of who you really are. Love and joy and peace. That's your natural birthright. Are you going to give that up to some creep? Nah.
Man, you just proved the point of why, with business coaching, I have had, some friends that are coaches, and it's like, I always joke with them. I'm like, people always think they're getting into it for the technical stuff. I just need help doing this. And it's like, it always goes back to the heart stuff. It always goes, you have to peel the layers back sometimes, maybe a little with people, but when you were saying that, I was like, that's why it always goes back to the heart stuff, because of the blocked amygdala. Like if you're struggling, it's kind of a joke, like, not that I know completely with corporate, but it's like people going through hard times. It shows up in their work. Not that that's a joke, but you just know that, you just know, like, if someone's work is slipping or something. And so, we think that we can compartmentalize life, and we can say, okay, well, I'm going to work over here and I'm going to do this, and this is falling apart, but I'm just going to pour into here. But it doesn't work that way, because you're the same person.
Right.
No matter where you're going.
It'll work for a while. You can double down on the finances. You can redo your books. You can read self-help books. You can concentrate and I'm going to fix this. But the bottom line is, if you don't relax and don't pull yourself back from the drama, you're not going to be able to see that maybe you should fire that person. Or maybe, so just because you forgive somebody doesn't mean you don't act on what happened. You still might have to file a lawsuit. If somebody embezzled money from you, you still might have to get divorced. You still might have to I don't know, just fix it.
Yeah.
But the fact is, you have to fix it here. The other stuff is doable, but it's your choice.
Yeah. That's kind of like just the details. Like, of course, if it's the consequences to the action is kind of what I'm hearing, is that there's still, I like that freedom that the consequences appropriately will play out, but that way emotionally, you're not holding on to those, you're releasing those. So
yeah, you can move on. Bigger and better stuff is out there waiting for you. And if your business is in a lurch, we can fix that, but not until you take that deep breath, stimulus and response. And, another thing Viktor Frankl says that I think is really important, and that I teach even as I'm coaching, business coaching, is that people's biggest need is meaning, not happiness, as Freud would say. But Viktor Frankl, who is a contemporary of Freud, says man's biggest need is meaning. So, and in the absence of meaning, that's when they pursue pleasure. But, that's when you go out and get drunk. That's when when you don't find meaning, you go to the lesser things. So he encourages people to have a project to work on. Have a team of people that love you and support you in that project. And then, and have a, shall we call it a redemptive view of suffering? A view that says, well, darn it, that hurt. But you get yourself back up again, and you keep moving forward. So those three things, a project, redemptive view of suffering, and a group of people that you surround yourself with that genuinely love you. And it's funny to watch my 2-year-old grandson. I mean, he's a running machine. That's all he does now. So it's run, trip, run, trip, run. And he always just kind of picks himself up and he falls on the driveway on the gravel. It's like, and I'm thinking, ooh,
oh no.
But just picks himself up and keeps going. And that's what we need to do. It's all part of learning to run. You are going to fall. You need to pick yourself up and move forward. And I learn a lot from 2-year-olds just watching them.
Amen. That is true. Oh man, I love that as the meaning. So true. So true. And you basically just summed up how I made it through 2020. And I wouldn't have known to list those things, but I am grateful for those because I think you're right. It really gives you, it's just that bigger purpose. I thought when you were talking before, in like, I guess you could say in the Christian world, they talk a lot about, you have that hole and it's a hole God can only fill type of thing. And you keep searching for this other meaning, in kind of looking for that next best thing. And so that'll look different maybe to other people, but.
Well, that's an interesting thing too, because people will sit around and say, I have this empty place, but I'm just going to sit here and wait for God to show me what it is. And then you have these dreams, but I don't know if I'm going to do that because I don't know if that's God's will. But you know what? God gives you those desires. God gives you desires according to your ability and your dreams because you have a unique place in the world. I mean, honestly, Samantha, who else is going to do a show about flushing a toilet? I mean, really, you have this unique place in the world. And if you didn't have the strength and courage to step in that, not the poop, but the,
I know. And I will step in it too, because that's going to happen too, right?
But if you didn't have the courage to step forward in that, the world would not know the joy that you can bring and the wisdom that you bring in your everyday experiences that you draw out of people. And it is such a gift. And it could so easily have been pushed aside just because you thought, well, it's just telling a story here and there. Well, no, It's a gift. And it's a gift from God. And you have the responsibility to play that out because you bring joy, and that's what we're all about. We are made of joy. and we're to spread joy. And you do every single day of your life.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. It's the 2020 for me, I think I said this on Susan's podcast, was 2019 was testing a theory of, wanting to, shine a light on the hard things and kind of breaking that ice with humor. And, this kind of Pollyanna view, for this. And I feel like 2020 was where the rubber met the road of like, oh, okay, I thought this message was for other people, but it was for me and I needed to walk it out. But I'm leaving 2020 with even more conviction. I remember at our first Ignite Fauquier meeting, and I was really nervous to kind of really explain what I was doing. And you were there and you made that's why I really am very grateful for you. But I remember it was like that, mom, like, you can do it, honey, you can tell your story. And so throughout this year, there's been times where I felt like I needed to play small, I'm in this certain room, not too much for real because of COVID, but, I'm in this space where I feel like I need to push it down a little more, who I am or my story. And it's just kind of, once you go through some, probably the hard knocks of life and you go through some stuff, it's like, you know what, if I'm not someone's cup of tea, or if someone doesn't want to hear this message, I now have the confidence to say, oh, that's them, whoever's meant to hear this or to do this. Like, and that's kind of goes back to the suffering and finding the purpose and the meaning in the suffering and the hard times. And so,
and we were not created to play small. The truth is, we're created to inspire one another, because as you rise up, people are watching you, and we're all leaders in some circle, and people are always watching. And you know that because they're always talking too. So as you rise up, you kind of give permission of all the people that are watching you to also rise up. And if you can't see that our world needs a better energy than it's been having lately, we need people to rise up in inspiration, in joy, and truth, and just move forward, so that other people feel empowered by you. And so, yeah, it's not humility to think small of yourself. It's not.
Well, I hope that everyone listening heard those words and took them to heart, because I appreciate them for me. And I know that that's the message that I know both of us want to put out to people. So thank you for that.
Exactly. That's why you do what you do. And I love it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. And I know that you have the Hero on a Mission workshop. And
Yes,
so if you would, I'd love to hear about that before we say goodbye, because I know that you just have such a gift to give. So.
Oh, thank you. You know, that the Hero on a Mission workshop that I do about once a month is so extremely powerful. And part of it is because it includes that mindset from Viktor Frankl, that it helps you get this big vision, this almost an embarrassing vision to tell anybody. This is what I really want to do. I'll go work at the store or whatever, but this is what I really want to do. And then we help you reverse engineer it from like 10 years, 5 years, 1 year, all the way down to, so what do I have to do today? And what do I have to not do today in order to keep me on this track? Because I don't know about you, but I'm easily distracted. You know, it's always like squirrel, you know, let me do this. And right. And so, it is a life-changing day-to-day way of helping your vision come into clarity and actually happen. And it's almost like a miracle. And I've gotten such good feedback from it. And it continues to surprise me that people come for hours and get a framework to make their vision come true. And this time of year, you know, we're recording, it's coming up on New Year's, but at any time throughout the year, when you move forward, you know that your New Year's resolutions usually last about 2 weeks. And then you get tired of being on a diet, and you get tired of exercising, and you get tired of being nice to your mother-in-law. It's just, you get tired. But this is a framework that keeps you going and keeps you surrounded by those people that you love, and keeps nurturing your relationships, and keeps validating your goal. And so, yeah. And I have at my website, I just keep a running list of when they're offered. So you just can go to businessyourway.solutions/events. And that's when you see everything that's happening. And I can just see more about that kind of stuff. Thank you for asking.
Yes, I think it's perfect. And as you were talking, I was thinking the whole time about the visual you said that Victor said between the stimulus and, was it the action? The response, yeah.
Stimulus and response. There's a space right here.
Yep. And I feel
space is right in your brain.
Exactly. And it's like, if we have that bigger mission and that bigger purpose, when you're in that space, I feel like that, can help, for at least for me, okay, I know what my bigger purpose is. So I want to make this decision, but.
Exactly. Exactly. You got it. You got it, girl.
Well, and
going.
So because I have you here, and this is my bonus therapy time. I talked to Susan. We were talking about the COVID weight gain, and I said how 2020 for me. I read a quote somewhere that said, and it was by a nutritionist who's not part of the diet culture, but it talked about how emotional eating is a coping mechanism. And instead of it being, kind of negative, it's like, it's a coping mechanism, and you do it for a period of time. And just, I can't remember how they said it, but it just totally gave me that piece of, okay, I'm doing the best I can. And so that's kind of, if that's the one area where, whether it was on the back burner, I can't even think of the right words, but I just did what I had to do. I needed that dopamine hit, whatever. But in the last couple of weeks, I just have felt this weight off my shoulders. And when you talked about that place, it's like, I can see that place now, where I think for most of 2020, and if other people can relate to it, that's why I'm also sharing it. It's that space might be so small because of that stress. And once that stress gets decreased and you're able to have that time and breathe and whatnot, perhaps it opens up that space more. Yeah,
absolutely. And you had said the weight gain thing. I just have to say, my stepson, Rob, over COVID has lost about 125 pounds.
Wow.
Probably in the course of, I forget exactly when he started, but COVID could have easily thrown him off in March. And yet he stayed focused, and he found value and purpose in what he was doing and why. And just looks like a totally different person with more energy, and it's much, much healthier at this point now. And so again, it was the mindset. My mindset seems to say, stress, potato chips. His mindset goes, stress, double down on the diet, because I'm going to be healthy. And that was his goal. I mean, he's a father of young kids, and he says, I've got to stay healthy. That was his motivation. It's amazing what our kids motivate us to do.
So true. And that's actually, and just speaking from me, it's one of those things that there was other priorities in front of that needed to be tended to. And now that those things have been tended to, it's like, okay, now I can focus on this, and just kind of giving myself that grace.
Huge.
Has been huge.
Yeah, absolutely. So important.
Yeah.
We are so hard on ourselves.
Well, Marianne, thank you so much for being on today. I love you so much. I think you are an incredible woman that everyone should know. And so I'm just so grateful for you.
Samantha, thank you so much. I mean, what a treat just to sit down face to face with you.
I know.
And I really, really appreciate it. So thank you for having me on.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I hope you'll come back as we continue to flesh it out. And I just thank you for making an impact, on your community and on truly the world, because I know you've been all over in your books, and I just appreciate you putting the good out into the world that you do. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap. for now.
Thanks for listening to Flushing It Out with Samantha Spittle. Please visit our website at flushingitout.com for all things Flushing, and be sure to subscribe. This has been a Spitfire production.
That was the greatest thing I've ever heard.